Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Yarn Ambassador pod blog. My name is Charlie and you can find me as Yarn Ambassador on Instagram and Chalice on Ravelry. Thank you very much for joining me. For those of you who have seen the pod blog before, thank you very much for coming back. And for those of you who are new, very welcome to you too. This is a slightly different episode to normal. What I normally like to do is take the work of one independent yarn dyer from the UK or maybe further afield and showcase their work and show you how their yarns knit up, what colourways they have, what bases they have. And I was doing really well on that, but then life kind of got in the way, and unfortunately I haven't been able to dedicate enough time to one independent yarn dyer this month to showcase. That said, I thought it was worth touching base to show you what I have been working on. I haven't been taking a break from the needles in any sense, but I've been working on all sorts of different things, so I thought I would share with you some of those, and also I thought it might be a good opportunity to review and look at some of the projects I've worked on this year and how they've fared and how they've got on, and kind of looking back at some old favourites. The first thing I wanted to talk about was what I'm wearing. This is a finished object since I last recorded. And this, I was lucky enough to be a test knitter. I saw an opportunity on Instagram from the lovely Beatrice, who is Thread and Ladle on Instagram, and she had posted this design, yoked sweater, and asked for test knitters. So I put up my hand and was very keen to be involved. This is a lovely knit. I've really enjoyed it. You can see it's a kind of traditional yoked sweater. It's got details on the sleeve, and it's also got details at the bottom as well. I'll insert a photo of the full thing so you can see. But it was a really lovely and easy test knit. It's my first test knit I've ever done. And it was a pleasure to work on. It was really, really nice. And now I have this wonderful jumper. It has short rows on the back to make the back slightly higher, so you have a bit more of a scooped neck. And it's got this wonderful geometric design. So it's kind of not your traditional yoked sweater design, but it's designed and inspired all around kind of Japanese art. It's part of a collection called Sumi, and Beatrice was very sweet and gifted all her test knitters a copy of this ebook, and there are some wonderful patterns in there which I'm really going to be excited to get on my needles once I've got all the other stuff off the needles. So I knitted this. This is in a DK. It's a DK weight, knitted on 4mm needles, and it's on Swaledale woolens. This is a small yarn producer in the north of England, in Yorkshire, in Swaledale, and they have a lovely little shop in a place called Mooka. And if you're up in the Yorkshire Dales, I suggest a visit. The wool is very reasonable. There's this lovely kind of delphinium blue. There are all sorts of other colours. It's quite a toothy yarn, so it's really good for colour work, and quite rustic feeling. It's not necessarily something I would have next to my skin, but I've got a long kind of sleeved top underneath, which makes it very comfy, and it is really cozy and very, very light. And then the colour detail, I think, was just a random ball of baby alpaca that I had lying around, which was great fun. So I've got another jumper, which I'm really pleased about, and I've needed because it is getting super chilly here in the UK. We've got a lovely winter afternoon here in Oxford, and I am desperately trying to record before the light fades. It's only about 3 in the afternoon, and already I'm probably almost pushing it in terms of natural light. So that's one thing I've been working on. I love being a test knitter. It is so much fun, and Beatrice was so very helpful, and I felt that we were able to give really useful feedback, so I was really chuffed to be part of that. And you should really go and check out her ebook of designs called Sumi, because they're delightful, really, really nice. The second thing that I have finished since we last met is another shawl, but I didn't do a Linus shawl. I was very proud of myself. I put up a message on Instagram and said, okay, I need another pattern, another simple pattern, one skein shawl pattern that I can use that isn't the Linus, perhaps with a bit of detailing or something. And the lovely Zoe from Pins and Needles UK had suggested the work of a designer called Martina Behm, B-E-H-M, and she suggested one that had kind of pointy bits coming down from it, which I really liked, but I'm not a pointy bit kind of person. But then I found this other one, which is very simple. It's a very simple kind of asymmetrical triangle shawl. I mean, it's not 100 miles away from the Linus shawl, and it's called Trillion, and it's got this lovely kind of lace work detail. So you do a kind of panel of lace on one side, and then when you come to cast off, you have a panel of lace, so it kind of meets in the middle. And I even managed to block this slightly irregularly, as you will maybe see, but near enough. And the yarn I used for this was a yarn I picked up at Yarndale in Skipton, which seems an age ago now, but I'm only really just kind of beginning to work through some of the yarns that I've picked up there. And this is from a wonderful British yarn dyer who specialises in gradient yarns. And as you can see, this starts off with this beautiful kind of rich purple, royal purple, and then goes through into a almost kind of tealy blue, and then almost kind of going into a almost charcoaly black at the end. So it's worked really well in a shawl, and you can really showcase the yarns on it, and they work together. This one is called Magma Rose, and one of the other things, so the gradients, they come in these wonderful gradient wheels that are just dreamy. The colours are just dreamy. You can't help but be excited by them, and they just knit up beautifully. But the other thing that really attracted me to the did I mention that from a lady called Pook GB? I don't think I did mention that. This is where I'm falling flat. It's supposed to be like a yarn ambassador, and then I just forget to mention the names. Rubbish. Anyway, it's called Pook, P-O-O-K GB, and she does these wonderful gradient wheels. And she does them all sorts of thicknesses, and she does them at all sorts of blends as well. And this one I was really attracted to because it's got yak in it. I've never knitted with yak before, and it's really soft. So I actually picked up two. So here you go. So these are the wheels that you get. There she is. She's called Pook GB. There you can see, I'll put up her details as well. And this one, the ball I'm holding, is called Underwater. It's 100 grams and it's about 366 meters. And this is a blend of superwash merino, silk 20%, and yak 20%, and obviously 60% superwash merino. So it is super soft. I've never knitted with yak before. I've always heard it was a kind of a lovely luxury fibre to play around with, which is why I was kind of drawn to use this as part of the gradient. So I've never knitted with a gradient yarn before, and I've never knitted with yak before. So there are two brand new things. I know there are several other independent dyers out there who are do have yak blends. I know that Jenny from Owl About Yarn has a yak blend. But these, so they are out there, and I think they're kind of quite easily accessible and becoming perhaps more accessible. But the gradients themselves are really nicely done. And if you are into knitting shawls, which I was trying to think if there was anything else I would knit with a gradient yarn, and I'd be interested to hear if there's anything that you guys knit with gradient yarns that isn't a shawl. Because if you were going to knit socks, I'm quite a matchy person when it comes to socks. So I don't know how that would work. And obviously if you're knitting a garment, you're going to have gradients starting again because you can't knit a whole garment from one skein of yarn. So I was thinking what I want to do with this one is combine it with a contrasting colour, a neutral, a solid neutral, maybe something like a grey or a navy or something that would go with it, and perhaps do a kind of a loop scarf. There's I'm going to take my glasses off because I can see that they are making glare, and that always annoys me, to be able to see the glare in the glasses, because then I always wonder what's on the other side of the glare. You know what I mean? Maybe not. So I was going to do this by doing maybe 3 rounds of this and then 3 rounds of the contrast colour, so you can see the gradient kind of coming through by measures, but also in stripes. There's a really nice pattern called rayure, which is a kind of a loop scarf, but it's a big tube, so you can wrap it round a couple of times around your neck. So that's what I have in store for that one next up. But it's really good fun yarn. Pook GB if you are looking for a nice gradient yarn for any kind of project. But yeah, do let me know what else you use gradient yarns for. So those are the 2 finished objects, the Tensho and the Pook shawl. And I've started quite a few other cast-ons. Christmas is coming, and although most of the time I'm a selfish knitter, my family have discovered that handmade socks are a thing that they like. And so I am trying to make some handmade socks for my dad. I hope he's not watching. I doubt he is. The first time they watched, they were like, wow, it's really long. I was like, it's really only 20 minutes long. You should see some of the other podcasts that are out there. But so I am knitting a pair of socks for my dad. And so I did some stash diving and came up with an old favourite, which is the Down Sheepy Lane yarns. And so I've already finished 1 sock. So this is kind of an adapted pattern that I made. So this has, I think I cast on 66 stitches using a 2.5 millimeter needle and just did a 1x1 rib for quite a long way. And then the body of it, I've done a 5x1 rib all the way through. So just to give it a little bit of kind of interest and perhaps a little bit of elasticity. I always really worry that my socks fall down. So I thought perhaps adding that kind of the pearl stitches in there might kind of give it a bit more elasticity, because I don't think my dad's going to want fully downy socks. So the main body of this yarn is from Down Sheepy Lane. It was one of her sock clubs from earlier in the year when she was doing her Roald Dahl themed sock clubs. And this is Fantastic Mr. Fox. Now it came actually with another contrasting mini skein for the heels, toes and cuffs, but I decided to use a darker one. It was a much paler kind of yellowy colour, and I found a tiny little bit of, I think this is Collinette, and I think it's called Copper Beach. You can see that a little bit closer there, and the cuffs. There we go. So that's what I'm doing. I'm halfway through. I'm not even halfway through the second sock. I'm kind of kidding myself that I've got ages till Christmas, so like, why bother? It's living in this project bag that my sister made me. My sister is a fabulous sewist, and I've been trying to get her to go on Etsy for ages with her stuff, because she makes really, really good bags. I'll show you some other ones another time, but so far she has not. She has lots of other stuff going on as well. So this is a Harriet's House needle cozy, which I treated myself to, and you can see I haven't really got very far on the cuff of the second. I'm definitely having second sock syndrome, but you know, got a little bit of time till Christmas, right? I'm really hoping, but at least I've got 1 sock done. So if the worst comes to the worst, and what I have done in the past, I have just wrapped up a single sock and gifted it with the promise of the second sock to come. So at least they have an idea of what's coming. But ideally, I'm going to try and get those finished first. So Big socks. They don't really fit on my sock blocker because I'm hoping they're the first socks I've made for a man. So I hope they fit his big man feet. I have big lady feet though, so they can't be too far off. Anyway, so that's one of my works in progress that I'm working on. The other work in progress that I have going on, and this is another Christmas project, is living in a Harriet's house bag. These are beautiful. I don't know if you've seen Harriet's house. She has a podcast, but she makes these wonderful project bags using Liberty prints, which makes them really special. And this has got a whole sweater project in it. So it is a fingering weight sweater project, but plenty of room. So this is another pavement. This will be my third pavement sweater this year. And this is for my sister, who also hopefully shouldn't be watching. I'm going to have to send out a family memo about this. So you can see how far I've got. I'm just in the very therapeutic part of stocking stitch at the moment. And this is using Stranded Dye Works in her Spook colourway. It's the Oasis base, so it's superwash merino and nylon, I think. It's not got any cashmere in it. But it's this wonderful kind of subtle grey, it's almost like clouds. It's quite a creamy grey. And I love this pattern. It's got short rows on the top to make the back of the neck collar a bit thicker. And then I've got quite a bit more to do, as you can see, to do the body. She's got a very long body, does my sister, so I'm gonna have to keep on going. But I'm really enjoying just the stockinette stitch in the round. It's very, very therapeutic, and it's something I can do while I watch TV without really having to think about it. So I could just go on and on and on and on with that, and I would be perfectly happy. So again, there's the picture of what it will look like ultimately. There we go. It's by Vera Valamarki, and it's a brilliant pattern. If you've not made a jumper, a fingering weight jumper before, and you're a bit anxious about it because of how long it might take, I suggest this pattern because it is actually relatively quickly made up, and like I say, there's a lot of stockinette in the round, but it's not interminable. You feel like you are at least getting somewhere because it's knit on 4.5mm needles, so it's quite a loose gauge. It's quite open, which makes it a really wearable, lightweight jumper. The pavement I made earlier in the year has got a lot of wear, and I will show you that in a minute because that's one of the things I wanted to show you as part of the review. And that's just really easy to wear just over a vest top, or with a small t-shirt underneath, or with like a full long sleeve top. It's very, very wearable for layers, and so actually that light gauge makes it very nice and drapey and easy to wear and breathable. So that's my lovely Harriet's house bag, and it's got this really cute little sewing machine. Can you see it against the pattern? Oh, balls, wrong way. It's a little, where's it gone? Oh. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it's a little old Singer thing. Rubbish, I'm going to cut that bit out. My lovely Harriet's house bag. Then, despite the fact I have a lot of Christmas projects to finish, and I have another one for my mom that I have just ordered some yarn for, all of these things need to be finished by Christmas. I got wooed again by another test knit that I saw on Instagram, and this one is for a wonderful lightweight cardigan, and it's called the Hauch cardigan. There you are. So it's kind of stripy. It's called Hauch. by Owl Cat Designs. And I saw a call for test knitters on Instagram and really, really wanted to be involved. I've never done a cardigan before. I have loads of fingering weight yarn. And so this calls for, I think it's 2 skeins of the main colour and 1 skein of contrast yarn. So it's really handy for those lovely skeins you've picked up because you just have to have them, but you don't want to make socks out of them or a shawl. You want to make them into a garment. This allows you to be able to do that. So I've just started on that. So I mean, this is really not going to show you very much at all. These are the 2 yarns I'm using. So one you might recognise. I've gone back to an old favourite here. This is the main colour I'm using is from Down Sheepy Lane. That's the Aria colourway, which was the one I made my first pavement out of. And the kind of in-between colour is also from her Game of Thrones club, which was called Kingslayer, and it was a misfit that I got. So actually you can see them better caked up there. So you can see I've got that kind of olivey green and the kind of pink, well, it's a very pale vanilla, I would say, with flashes of red, pink, brown, and I think I really like how it's coming together. It almost feels kind of Christmassy when they're in those stripes, so I'm really looking forward to that, and so far it's been a really easy knit, and so I'm hoping to be able to show you that in its full entirety in the next podcast, because I'm hoping to have that finished by the end of December, as we have been asked to do. So yeah, another really fun test knit going on there, which might just be a Christmas present for myself. And talking about Christmas presents for myself, because, you know, Christmas is all about giving, self-giving, right? It is nearly the 1st of December, which means it is nearly time for Advent calendars. And as we're talking about Down Sheepy Lane, again, I got one of the Advent calendars that she had put together. And I'll show you it because it's beautiful. Did anyone just see the man at the door? Scary. Anyway, so look at this. Can you see that? Debbie from Down Sheepy Lane has made these and they're just delightful. Sorry, I'm having some issues with where my camera is at the moment. So she made these wonderful stockings, which are in this kind of icy blue, and there's kind of metallic-y flashes on the main colour. It's just gorgeous. It's kind of Christmassy without being too Christmassy. And then for each day, there's a little parcel, and you can tell which parcel is that day because it should have, there's a number 1 on it. And I don't know if anybody else grew up in the era where you used to go and get penny sweets on a Saturday. I used to get 25p pocket money, and I would go and buy 25 penny sweets, and they would come in these little bags. And so these little bags forever associated with me and penny sweets and kind of fun treats inside. And there are fun treats inside. So there is a tiny mini skein of yarn in there, Christmas yarn. And she sent us the cheat sheet of what everything is and what we can expect each day. So when we've opened it, we know what the name of it is. And I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do with my mini skeins. I think I'm going to just enjoy opening them and not use them this year, just to see how the colours fit together and see if I can do something special. I am very keen on the adventurous shawl that Amber Designs has put out. I've gone and bought that, but I think I'm going to use leftover mini skeins that I've from this year to do that one, rather than using the precious actual stuff from this. And not only that, so you get 24 of those lovely little bags. This is going to be going on my mantelpiece. But she also sent something for day 25 as well. So that's going under the tree. I can only guess what it might be. It's not a book and it's not a bottle. So it's my other favourite thing. So that's going under the tree when I get a tree. And she also sent these darling, adorable progress keepers. So look, it's a little Christmas pudding. And there were some progress keepers, which I've already actually had to use in this test knit that I'm doing. Wrong way, wrong way. There we go. Look, there's a little gingerbread man and a little Christmas tree. And there's a little snowflake too. So really lovely little package to get, and has properly got me in the Christmas spirit already and super excited. I'm travelling quite a lot in December, so I'm going to actually have to take some of the little bags out of the stocking to take them with me so that I can open them on my travels, because heaven forbid a day should go by when I don't open my yarns. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Debbie's must have spent ages dyeing up these special colourways and rolling these mini skeins. So an awful lot of work, and it's bringing an awful lot of joy. So thank you very much, Debbie. Cannot wait to get involved in those. So for the next part, I thought it would be worth just having a quick review of some of the items that I've worked on this year from some of the independent yarn dyers and doers that I've showcased. First up, I did want to talk about the pavement, the Aria pavement sweater from Down Sheepy Lane. This has been a constant staple in my wardrobe. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I've been flinging it in the wash on a wool cycle. It's superwash merino. It's superwash merino. I treat my woolens pretty hard, to be honest. If they can't keep up the pace, then kind of tough luck. But this has really stood up to it. There is a little bit of pilling that's happened. I don't know if you can see that, but to be perfectly honest, it's nothing that a quick glean can't do, and I'm actually surprised there isn't more. It's held up amazingly well. So that was on Down Sheepy Lane's superwash merino nylon on the high twist base, and so perhaps that's why there's been less pilling as well, because it's on that high twist base. But really very impressed with how this has stood up and how the colours have maintained what they are. There hasn't been any bleeding, it hasn't really faded, it's just been wonderful. So from my first ever project, it wasn't my first ever project, it was my first ever sock weight yarn jumper. You know what I mean? Fingering weight jumper, that's the word I'm looking for. But it's brilliant, and I think that's why I've gone back to the pattern again and again. But I do think there is something to be said for using that high twist for garment stuff. I think it's beautifully drapey, but it's also really stood up to some hardware. And like I say, I chucked this in the washing machine on the wool wash, the wool cycle with a special wool wash, and that stood absolutely fine. The next project I wanted to show you is a bit of a sad story, and it's because I'm a bad knitting mother when looking after my woolens. I did say if they couldn't stand up to the pace, then that was their fault. But I've really slightly destroyed these socks, and I'm very sad for it. So this was from, I think it was episode 2, where I used Viking yarns, and I made these beautiful socks. They were out of a sorry, they were out of a skein of yarn which was called Raspberry Truffle that looked like this. So it had some really bright pinks, hot yellows, some really deep charcoals. I'll insert a picture of what the socks used to look like. And in a moment of madness, a loss of concentration, I put those socks in a normal wash, not on the wool cycle and not with special wool wash. And they have come out slightly nudie looking, and that is entirely my fault because I did not follow the care instructions. The care instructions say hand wash. Sometimes I ignore that, but normally I do put my hand washes, if I do put them in the machine, I always put them on the wool cycle with wool wash. I did not do that this time, and look at what it's done. Just holding those up so you can see the devastation I have wrought upon my socks. So I still wear them. They are still super soft and super comfy. You can see that I wear these all the time. And again, they get quite a hard life. You can see there is some kind of pilling and felting. These are 100% superwash merino though, so I would expect nothing less. I know there's going to be that kind of wear and tear on them. I knew when I was knitting them that they wouldn't hold up as much as the other ones, but I just really wanted a pair of socks out of that yarn, so I went ahead and did it. So I'm not at all bothered about the kind of the slight felting that's happened, totally normal. And some of the pilling, again, totally normal. It's superwash merino, absolutely fine. I am sad I've managed to destroy the beautiful yarn colour because that was the main reason I knitted them. They're still fine, you know, they're still socks. They're kind of more pastel-y candy cane colours rather than those very vibrant, lovely raspberry truffle. There is no raspberry in that anymore. I might have to get some more and make some new socks. So my socks do get quite hard wear and it's quite tough love. So I think that is perhaps a lesson learned. Be more careful when I'm putting my wash in. It's also amazing at the like what a difference it actually makes. Like this was on a normal wash with normal detergent and that's what it did to it. Which it's not like I boiled them or anything. Anyway, I don't know if you can tell, I'm a little bit preoccupied by how much I've ruined the beautiful colourway that Helen, that Viking Yarns put together. Sorry. So, lesson learned. A, don't put them in the wash at 40 degrees with normal detergent. B, try and aim for some that have nylon content. Error all round there. So, sad story. The other one, which is a happy story, is the Gamzee I made from Northern Yarns. And this has just been a bit of a workhorse as well. I've been wearing this all the time since it started getting colder. And it has just got softer and softer and softer with wear. So it's lovely. It doesn't feel itchy or scratchy, much less so than this one actually from the Swaledale Woolens. There is some pilling that's happened, but nothing a good glean wouldn't sort out, and it's kind of as you'd expect, quite a bit on the sleeve area, which is where it's getting most of the wear. But it's turned into a real kind of cosy throw on. It was quite stiff to start with, and the more I've worn it, the more it's loosened up, which is kind of what you'd expect, but I'm really pleased it did do that. I haven't washed this yet. This is not going in the machine. I mean, I know that much. So this has just had some good airings. This is doing really well. It's become a real workhorse, and I've really enjoyed working with that. So that was the Lancashire wool from Northern Yarns. Northern Yarns shop has opened and is going strong, I believe. If you follow her on Instagram, you'll see all of the goodies that she's got in her shop now, and well worth checking out. So that was just a quick review of some of the things. I will try and do that once every so often, because when I have been doing showcases for independent yarn dyers, the stuff is brand new, right? It's just been knitted, probably finished the morning I record, sometimes not even blocked. And so I do think it's important to review it, to see how they've held up to errors, to wear, to see, you know, how you can expect them to look a couple of months down the line. So every so often I will try and do that. And I'm hoping to be back in January with a proper showcase of an independent yarn dyer. I've got one lined up, which I'm very excited to get on the needles and get ready, but there is a lot of obligatory Christmas knitting to get out of the way before then. I'm also hoping I might be able to cast on some Christmas socks for me with some West Yorkshire Spinners Super Sock yarn, their signature 4-ply. This is the Hollyberry yarn. I know a lot of people have been using it for their Christmas socks. I've now missed Amy's Christmas sock along because I'm being busy, and if I'm going to get everything finished before Christmas, that's kind of looking further and further away. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'll probably end up making them in January and just having Christmas socks in January. Why not? Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Have a wonderful run up to Christmas. Enjoy all your advent calendars. If you've got yarny advent calendars, or tell me what you're doing for your Christmas preparations. It's a good time to be a knitter, isn't it? The run up to Christmas. I really enjoy that, and being able to dress myself in my own handmade clothes. That's really fun. Anyway, thank you very much, and normal progress will resume from January. So thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.